I'd like to start out by asking everyone to think back to your favorite teacher from your grade school years. My 5th grade science teacher encouraged me to design my own experiments and helped spark a lifelong passion for science. On the other hand, there were probably some teachers who were so bad you didn't learn very much at all in their class. My high school CS teacher alternated between bragging about his exploits at NASA and falling asleep. Today, I'm going to talk to you about a really controversial approach to teacher evaluations, value-added methods. By the end of my talk today, I'd like to persuade you of 3 things. First, value-added methods are highly biased and unreliable. Second, they should play only a complementary role to observation in teacher evaluations. And third, individual schools or districts should be allowed to decide for themselves how to use value-added. In order to do this, I'll start off by defining the qualities of a good teacher evaluation system. Then I'll weigh all the arguments for and against value-added. Finally, based on these conclusions, I'll make some recommendations about how or if value-added should be used in teacher evaluations. So thinking back to those 2 teachers from earlier, I don't think it's a stretch to say that there was a huge difference between your experience with your worst and your best teacher. But shockingly, our current system would likely find no difference between them. Today, most teacher evaluations simply divide teachers as effective or ineffective, and only tiny proportions of teachers fail these tests, as little as 1 in 300. In all likelihood, both of those teachers you were thinking about earlier are in this big chunk we all assume are equally good. So what should a good teacher evaluation system look like? It should be accurate, able to tell good teachers from bad. It should be unbiased. A teacher shouldn't be punished because of what students she has. And it should be useful, providing meaningful feedback. So you might be wondering how value-added methods hope to meet these goals. These methods work by generating an expected score for every student based on his or her previous scores. Then they statistically adjust for demographics and classroom environment. To calculate the value added by the teacher, the formula subtracts the expected score from the actual score. The more value added, the better teacher. Recently, these programs have been getting more and more popular, which just makes it more important that we learn how effective they are. On the surface, we can see all the advantages. Teacher evaluations are tied directly to what their students are actually learning. And since we get an exact numerical answer as to how effective each teacher is, we can easily tell which teachers are best. And all those statistical adjustments are supposed to isolate the teacher's impact from everything else that goes into a student's score. One finding that supports this position is that value-added scores do correlate well with student outcomes. You can see here that as a teacher's value-added score rises, so do her students' incomes later in life. Once we look more closely, however, we can see that there's plenty of reasons why the philosophically valid theory doesn't actually play out in reality. First of all, they don't actually isolate teacher effects like they claim. Studies have shown time and time again that factors outside of a teacher's control still affect their value-added scores. All those clean, decisive arrows you saw earlier, they're more like meandering, confused connections with plenty of mystery factors thrown in. For example, the formula has no way of knowing whether the child is distracted because of problems at home. On an even simpler level, what if there was a dog barking in the parking lot on test day? That would drag the entire class's score down. And when we look at the data, we do actually see that teacher scores vary widely from year to year, class to class, and statistical model to model. If these scores were truly reflecting only teacher quality, that would not happen. And all those outside factors add up, and in the end, only about 30% of a teacher's score can be explained by the teacher herself. It's so extreme that teachers see bonuses awarded from value-added scores as winning the lottery. Pascal Mauclair learned this the hard way. By all accounts, she's a passionate teacher who bravely confronted difficult obstacles. Her principal said that she would put her own kids in Mauclair's class. But her students were impoverished, didn't speak English, faced racial discrimination, and troubled home lives. As a result, she scored 0 out of 99 on New York City's value-added program. The New York Post got a hold of her name and vilified her as the worst teacher in New York. So we have to ask ourselves, are we okay with putting our trust in such an unreliable system? Even outside of their statistical validity, value-added raises another dangerous possibility, teaching to the test. In a recent study, 85% of teachers spent class time specifically on test prep and high-stakes testing environments. This takes class time away from valuable skills that can't be seen on tests, like social skills or scientific inquiry or research. So, as we can see, there are valid arguments on both sides of this debate. But on the whole, I believe that value added is too unreliable and too biased to form the basis of a fair and accurate teacher evaluation system. But I don't think they should be completely abandoned. So now I'm going to make some recommendations about how value added should best be incorporated into teacher evaluation systems. First, value added should be only a minor supplement, maybe 10 or 20% to a system based on observation. In recent years, research groups have come up with sophisticated observation rubrics. For example, the Danielson Framework for Teaching has trained impartial evaluators carry out multiple observations. They rate teachers on a scale from 1 to 4 with clearly defined scores in 32 different categories. That's a lot better than a simple thumbs up or down. Furthermore, combining these two approaches can help compensate for each other's failures. Value added can help make up for any personal favoritism that skews observational scores. Observation can help evaluate untestable aspects of teaching that value-added methods miss. Value-added methods can tell teachers which topics they need to emphasize more, and observation can tell them how to improve their teaching style. And indeed, we see that when observation and value-added are combined, they're even more accurate than either of them alone. Finally, I'd like to emphasize that there's no single homogeneous solution to the teacher evaluation problem. What's best for suburban Palo Alto may look completely different from inner city Manhattan. At schools with high dropout rates, principals might want to emphasize teacher enthusiasm to help keep kids in school. On the other hand, if most kids are trying to go to college, standardized test scores would be more important. In my opinion, big programs mandating value added are unwise because they try to force diverse communities to conform to a single plan. Teacher evaluation decisions would better be left to principals, or more practically, district superintendents. I found two possible prototypes for teacher evaluations. In Chicago, a pilot of the Danielson Framework alone was successful in identifying meaningful proportions of bad teachers. That's a little bit more useful than 1 in 300. The Impact program in Washington, D.C. combined 55% value added with 35% observation. In my opinion, the ideal solution lies somewhere in the middle. Value added should be enough to encourage teachers to promote real progress, but not enough to unfairly punish good teachers or force them to narrow their curriculum. Returning to the case of Pascal Mauclair, if value added had been only a minor component of her evaluation combined with observation, her excellence as an educator could have been recognized and rewarded. And if individual schools within the New York school system had been allowed to design their own plans, her principal could have chosen something that took her extenuating circumstances into account. Now I'd like you all to think back to that favorite teacher you identified at the start of my talk. What was the most important thing she taught you? Maybe it was a particular learning strategy, how to write a research paper, how to deal with your peers more effectively. Would some state agency be able to see that on a test score? Probably not. It wouldn't be fair to her, and it wouldn't weed her out from all those other mediocre teachers out there. For this and all the other reasons I've outlined, I believe that value added should not be the main component of teacher evaluations. In conclusion, teacher evaluations in this country are unacceptable, but there is reason to be optimistic. More and more states are working toward expanding their evaluation programs in some form, and even if it's not perfect, the only way we can go is up. By optimizing teacher evaluations with the reforms I propose, we can begin to hope for a brighter future for American students.